Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noy with SpeakEasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. We are back with another episode. It is July 14th, middle of the year. It's hot in most parts of the country, but we are here to hang out and talk with another awesome guest for episode 38. So I am fortunate to have Diane Allen. She is a best-selling author, musician, concert master on today. So Diane, welcome to SpeakEasy HR.
Thank you so much, David. This is my idea of fun.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to get into a lot of stuff, including your awesome book, Flow, that came out last September. So cannot wait to have you go through some of these questions that we've been kind of going through as we've connected. So for those of you who are new to SpeakEasy HR, my name is David Noe. I started this a year ago, and so we're celebrating the anniversary of SpeakEasy HR all July, having different guests, perspectives. Last week was a lot of fun with a comedian, so check that out if you haven't. I've got a brand new blog out today, week 28, on vision is the word of the week. So it really kind of goes in with flow and everything that we're going to get into today, the vision that you should have. So maybe realigning your vision for the next few months into the fall. So take a look at that at speakeasyhr.com. So we are going to play a couple of lightning round envelope icebreaker game with Diane. So we are live too on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you are watching, have any questions, chime in, ask us questions. We would love to hear from you if you are watching live. So Diane, for people that don't know you, if you want to kind of explain your background and in music, I know you've done a lot in your past. So let us know a little bit about you.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. It's interesting if I go in reverse order. I'm currently somebody who speaks about flow state, and flow state is something that encompasses all. It's under the umbrella of positive psychology, and it helps us to deeply engage with our work, perform beyond what we thought we were capable of, to be able to find fulfillment in our work, and to be happy, to increase happiness in life. And so you'll find me these days on podcasts like this. I've been on a number of SHRM state conference stages speaking about this. And I also perform. I'm a violinist. I was the concert master of the Central Oregon Symphony for 15 years. And I grew up playing the violin since I was 8 years old. And so when a musician gets into the music, they're getting into the flow state. And when an athlete is getting into the zone, they're getting into their flow state. But everybody is wired for this. And there's no reason why we can't all experience the same that, people like me and athletes and my son who's a pilot, we rely on peak performance at all times. And accessing the flow state is like the most rewarding and refueling way. So I'm just like a teacher at heart. I taught violin for 28 years. And now I prefer to speak to many to help empower people to activate their flow state and to, really find the joy and meaning in your own work.
Yeah. And loving what you do, I feel like in this day and age and people having so many options of work, it'll change. I think technology and the way AI is shaping the workplace, things are going to change, and people, they want to love what they do and they want to feel passionate about their work. So a lot of people aren't there. They're just very disengaged with their job, their boss, their company. They change jobs every year or two. And so I think a lot of what you talk about in this book, Flow, is going to help people, or, really a manager that wants to get into a better flow state with their team. So cannot wait to dive into all of that with you. And again, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you are watching, feel free to chime in and ask questions along the way. So, all right, are you ready to pick a number 1 through 15 for the envelope icebreaker game? So think about your number And after this quick little segment, I will ask you for your number, and we might play a couple here. So hold on.
Okay.
All right. So for year 2, I got brand new questions, Diane. This is 1 through 15. All you got to do is pick a number, and I will tell you what the question is.
Number 7.
Number 7. Where are we at here? There we go. All right. Number 7, she's got. Okay. What's a random skill or talent that you have that people are always surprised by?
Oh, wow. What's a random skill or talent that people are surprised by? Ooh. Well, first thing that comes to mind is off the cuff humor.
Humor? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that something you always had, or like growing up, did you always have humor that with friends, or was that more just recently? Like when did that start?
I think it's always been there, but it keeps developing.
Yeah.
And
That's
I think
good.
that the aspect of surprise, right, is when you're talking with people and something pops out of my mouth and there's a lot of laughter, there's immediate surprise. So that's why it came to mind.
Good. That's awesome. I love that. I've got someone chimed in. I love the incorporation of flow state in the dialogue. So thank you for tuning in, Artrell. David, I love that question. It's yeah, very good. Love it. All right. I'm going to let you pick one more, Diane. 1 through 15, not 7.
Okay. We'll go for number 3.
Number 3. I forgot the questions I even put in here. So
open the envelope, please.
Okay. If you had a resume fun fact section, what would it say?
A resume fun fact section would say that, yes, I have skydived not once, but twice.
Really?
And they were really life-changing experiences.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have never done it. I never want to do it. I don't know. Maybe one day. I don't know. That's something I'm dreaming to do one day. It's not on my bucket list. But.
Yeah. It was flying for a skydiving company was the first real job that my son got as a pilot. And it's just an hour drive away. And it's like, of course I have to go. Everything he does, I have to do, right? So he was the pilot. And the first jump, what came to me afterwards was, I am more capable than I think I am. And I think most people feel that. And it's not until you're pushed, a lot about flow state is being just outside of your comfort zone. And that's like to a lot of people, everybody has their own concept of what risk is, right?
Right.
But it is that stretchingness, that pulls the best out of us. So that was the first jump. The second jump, and I was also naive. I didn't know what it was going to be like, right? The second jump, apparently, I was holding on to my son with my might right before the jump. And I woke up to him like pounding my arm. I guess I was like gripping on for dear life because I had already known what it was going to be like. The first time I was kind of like, okay, well, let's just do this, right? So I was already anticipating. And then in that moment, I realized I had a choice. Either I'm going to hold on to this fear or I have to let go. And I'm not kidding you. I saw in capital letters, TRUST, the word trust. I let go. We jumped. We did a backflip, came out on our bellies. We rode the wind. I could feel like what it must be like for a bird to feel the wind underneath their wings. I could feel us steering the wind. When the parachute is deployed, right? There's a huge upsurge, right? There's like a big lift, And then we did all kinds of, fun ways on the way down. So when we got down to the ground, the tandem flight instructor who I was attached to, right, to do all this, he said, okay, tell me what we did. And I replayed everything that we just did. And he said, are you kidding me? He said, you were fully present from beginning to end.
Wow.
And that is, I think, another aspect of flow. There's like this deep presence. Like you really, being in flow literally turns off your fight or flight response.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In that moment, like, I don't know, I think because I'm a violinist and I've had to get into the music and get into flow for well over 1,000 concerts. My husband and I stopped counting when we hit 1,000, and that was a long time ago. So I don't even know how many concerts we played at this point. And not to mention my stage time speaking. So I think that I've gotten like this routine where like you show up, it's downbeat, you're on. So I think I was able to flip the switch in that moment and be so present. The fight or flight response was gone. That is a neurological response in the brain that has been actually tracked by neuroscientists that happens when you're in flow. And it opens you up to be deeply engaged, completely present, which is what I experienced on that second time down. Just a matter of turning on the trust button.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. That kind of changed my view a little bit about it. So maybe one day I'll do it. I don't know. I'll have to think about it, but no, that's great. Appreciate you sharing all of that. So
yeah.
All right. This is a new piece to the year 2. It is the lightning round that we are going to play here quickly. So
okay.
I'm going to spin this and it's going to come up with one of these questions that I always want to ask people going into the second season. It's a little speakeasy-ish if you were to go into a speakeasy back in the day. So as the name of the podcast is SpeakEasy HR, what this one is, what's your go-to speakeasy cocktail, real or made up?
Real or made up? Feathers and boas.
Feathers and boas. Okay. What does that entail?
I was thinking of the flap dancers and their costumes.
Yeah. Okay. What would be in it? Any specific mix, or what would be like in the cocktail?
That I am completely naive about. I'm not a drinker.
Maybe it's like a iced coffee, but it's got a fun name to it, like an espresso.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, good. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself, Diane. It's always fun to hear about people's past and how they, get into their work. And so I'm excited to really dive into this topic that you brought today. So before we do that, grab a drink of water, whatever you need. We have a couple of words from our sponsor, and then we're going to dive into it here in a few seconds.
Finding a new employee takes time and money. For one position on a single job board, you could easily spend a minimum of $5 to $10 a day advertising a job post. It's worth noting that the average time it takes to hire a new employee is 36 days. However, it can take longer than that. You could find yourself paying hundreds of dollars a month for a single job board. And if you're using multiple job boards for multiple positions, this could add up to thousands of dollars a month. There is a much simpler and more affordable way of finding the right candidate. At Payroll Partners, we offer an applicant tracking system to help manage your hiring process. Our ATS is customizable, allowing you to decide which days you want to run the job and when to close it so you don't break the bank. And this feature lets you e-blast your network, posting jobs on multiple boards at once, all managed in one location. Payroll Partners, elevating your payroll and HR experience.
So if you are watching and you are fed up with your technology for your company, Payroll HR, look us up, payrollpartners.net. Would love to connect and hear about your pain points and just see if we can help you along the way. So, all right, Diane, we are going to dive into your topic, and it is lead with purpose, fuel performance. As you talked about being in music and athletes and workplace, everybody has performance, whether it's in their job, in their professional athlete career, it's all about performance and how do you do that with purpose. So What is flow? And you have talked about it a little bit, but can you walk us through the neuroscience of flow and its benefits?
Yes, let's go for it. Because we have to all get on the same page, right? And so I have a video. Let's see if it'll play. So the neuroscience of flow is such that there's a cocktail of peak performance hormones that get released in your brain, creating brain waves conducive to the flow state. The neocortex amps up, dramatically increasing learning speed, and the prefrontal cortex temporarily shuts down. And this explains why we lose a sense of time and a sense of ourselves, key indicators that we are in flow. And the key indicators are, let's see, oh, there they are. Losing a sense of time, losing the sense of yourself, which is kind of a funny thing to say. But when I say losing a sense of time, it's like you're so immersed in something and you just love what you're doing. It's that kind of losing your sense, sense of time. Maybe the time feels like it zips by really quickly, or maybe it goes by slowly, but like in a good way. And then when you lose a sense of self, that's because literally the neurobiology of flow is such that I already mentioned it turns off your fight or flight response, but you know what else it turns off? Your inner critic. That's that prefrontal cortex that gets temporarily shut down. So you are feeling liberated. You're feeling like fearless and uninhibited.
Yeah.
Another key indicator is when you have ideas and insights come in from out of the blue. Like, have you ever had like just random thoughts just pop in like from like out of nowhere?
Oh yeah.
That's another sign of being in flow. Getting things done, like things coming together with a sense of ease. Hey, David, have you ever gotten more done in 30 minutes than you had in the last 3 days?
Yep.
That's flow, okay? So you're finding times when you've been in flow by looking at these key indicators. There's a negative feedback loop is when you're pouring yourself into your work. There's no energy coming back, and it ends up being draining, and it pulls you down.
Yeah.
But when you're working in flow, it is so rewarding that it refuels you, and you get into a positive feedback loop. And the positive feedback loop is one thing, but its impact on mental health is another. I think we all remember, I think I have that slide up next year. I think we all remember Adam Grant in the pandemic talking about languishing. It was like, this is what we're all feeling. And it was such a relief to hear the word languishing. Oh, there's a label for what I'm feeling. Well, most people remember that, but what they don't remember is that Adam Grant specifically stated that the antidote to languishing is to activate your flow state. So on the mental health spectrum, between depression and flourishing, the midway point is languishing. And you, the more you're in flow, like I mentioned, you're deeper you are engaged, right? Yeah. And so this is, under, like I said, under the umbrella of positive psychology. And so like this kind of hits on some of that psychological aspects. So experiencing more meaning, joy, and fulfillment. How can you connect with yourself in a way, and connect in your flow in a way that you can be so well rehearsed and practiced at activating it that you can conjure this up for yourself at any moment of time. And that's the kind of training that I've been feeling like that's my mission in life.
Yeah. So how does flow help people overcome uncertainty and disruption?
Right. So I think that it grounds people, first of all. Like when you're in this level of uncertainty, you're not grounded, right? You're kind of getting swept up. It's like, who are you being in the midst of all of this? And I'd like to talk about, like, in a world of do, right? We get really caught up with that. And so when you're checking things off your task list, you do get a dopamine hit, but it's oftentimes like eating cheap candy. It tastes great in the moment, right? And then you feel crappy later on because that to-do list never ends.
Yep.
So the real question is, how are you being when you are doing? And I feel like when people are in flow, they are really being in their most unique self. They're your secret sauce. So Martin Seligman, he was the first person, yeah, I think this is right. The first person who, yeah, he's the person who came up with the term positive psychology. Positive psychology is taking a look at what's working well, reverse engineering it so that you can create more of that goodness in your life, right? Instead of all of the digging up all of the old stuff, right? So, and then flow is something that he mentioned, is that when you're in this state of flow, that you experience more happiness and joy in your life. And then it was Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who did the most intensive, the first psychologist who did the most extensive research into flow. And we'll talk about some of his ways to activate flow in a minute. But I kind of lost my train of thought all of a sudden. So
okay.
What was your question?
How to overcome disruption and uncertainty.
Disruption and burnout, right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's my belief, okay. Oh, I know what it was. Martin Seligman, going back to positive psychology, Martin Seligman, he specifically stated that you are immersed in your signature strengths. And it's my belief that everybody has their own unique way of activating flow. And that is based on your signature strength. That's your secret sauce. It's the thing that makes you tick. Yep. And the thing about this is that when you can define it for yourself, you can own it, right? And when you can own it, you can replicate it. That's that practice I was talking about. So when people say go with the flow, that is not what we're talking about. That is a mindset. And it is passive. It's meaning to like let go and let it happen, which a lot of times when you are in flow, it does feel like that. Yeah. But when you are actually in the flow state, you are active. You are actively engaged in something. And so there's a huge distinction. So going with the flow is a mindset. Being in flow is a mind state. So with regards to uncertainty, grounding yourself, knowing who you are, being your own pillar as you're navigating uncertainty. With regards to disruption and uncertainty, this is when we need those innovative ideas. When you're, stress narrows focus. Flow broadens focus. You're able to take in so much more stimuli and material and to be able to navigate with it. So that's why when you're dealing with, disruption, whether it's an emotional reaction or having to learn something new, or with like uncertainty, like how do we deal with this, right? Being able to be broad and open instead of that narrow focus is, it's like, why not, right?
Yeah.
If you can get to that place, you're going to be more, like I said, more grounded and more functional under high pressure.
Yeah. So you often talk about how flow engages employees in a way where their work refuels them instead of draining them. So is there another way to activate flow that's based on people's signature strengths and their sense of purpose in their job?
Yes. Yeah. So I had, like I said, thousands of years, right? It's got thousands of years. I'm not that old. Thousands of concerts. Thousands of concerts under my belt, right? And it was really late in my career as a performing artist on stage with the orchestra. And I had a performance fail, David. It freaked me out. Now, we rally all the time, but what freaked me out about this particular performance fail was once I rallied, I could not get into the music. It literally felt like I forgot how. So I was literally performing a concert, going through the motions. I was playing the right notes. That was it. And when you're a musician, people expect to have a transformational experience. They expect you to be in the music and be connected emotionally with it. That helps them to connect with their emotions, right? Yeah. There's a whole thing about group flow that we can talk about as well, that everybody on stage and everybody in the audience gets into like this synergistic state of group flow. So the not being able to provide that in that moment was completely pulled the rug out from under my feet. I was like, how could this be? And literally that was the night I sat down and I reverse engineered how I get into flow. So I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps. These are 3 prompts. When I'm talking to HR professionals, and I've talked to thousands of you through all of the conferences that I've spoken for, this is 2-part, okay? You need to apply this to yourself, and you need to use this when you're putting your coaching hat on to help somebody who's perhaps struggling with their work. And if you want to help them to reconnect. So there's 3 simple prompts. And like I said, you can apply this to yourself. And then I want you to be able to also talk somebody through figuring out what I call your flow strategy. This is your unique way of activating flow. And so the first place is just to determine, where are you? So I just want to backtrack for a second. I like to say what's really important to me is that people love what they do. And very recently, only a few weeks ago, somebody asked me, why do I feel that way? Like, what does that come from in my background? And I was like, oh my gosh, my mom, she was a prolific painter. And if she wasn't working, she was on the easel painting. So in her downtime, right, that's what she was predominantly doing. It was just her pride and joy and you know, her ability to be able to create something and, you know, right? So she would do what she loved after work, okay? My dad, he brought what he loved to a job that paid the bills. He was a salesman. He was a salesman for decades. And we had different sales jobs, but he was always a primarily salesman. And,
Okay.
and for him, it was always about connecting with people and being of service.
Yep.
Like that was always there. And I don't think it mattered what he did, as long as he was able to connect with people and to be of service. And I realized that I am so fortunate that I grew up in an environment where everyone loved what they were doing. I mean, how rare is that, right? And this is like really a recent, very recent revelation. Boy, my tongue's a little twisted today. Revelation. So when we talk about where are you when you get into the flow state the most, right now, I want people to, it doesn't matter, right? You just heard my example with my parents. Doesn't matter if you're doing something after work or it's something during work, okay? We're just gonna figure out what is your flow strategy. Where are you? And what you wanna do is go back to that list of key indicators. By the way, I have the Cliff Notes for everybody. That's a really antiquated term. We could say the AI notes, but I wrote them, so. They're like an AI summary, but I wrote them. So they're like, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to give everybody access to this. And there's some videos that complement it too. It's got a flow strategy worksheet and everything. Okay. So you can just absorb and listen to this and I'll supply you with follow-up materials. So where are you when you get into the flow state the most means you're looking at those key indicators we talked about earlier. Where are you when you lose all sense of time? Where are you when you've got those ideas and insights popping, right? When you're fearless and uninhibited? Where are you when you get more done? Like with a sense of ease. You're in that positive feedback loop and overall you're experiencing, you know, that mental health, right? You're flourishing, you're feeling more happy and fulfilled. Now, maybe it's one of those key indicators or 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. Just notice, where are you when you get into the flow state the most? Just observe, that's all. Then what are you doing? Like, so for me, I'm on stage playing music. What am I doing? I'm playing the violin, right? Captain Obvious, right? David and I, we already talked, right? Where is he? On the golf course. What's he doing? He's playing golf, all right? what are you doing on the inside is the question that we're really digging for. So that when you're asking somebody, what are you doing? You're asking two. What are you doing on the outside? What are you doing on the inside? And so that day that I couldn't get into the music, I had to replay a memory of a time when I was in flow. So this is why you want to locate where were you in flow so that you can replay that in your mind. And then like, what are you doing on the outside? What are you doing on the inside? So for example, if where you are is in your office, what you're doing is working on an Excel spreadsheet. What are you doing on the inside? Could be strategizing, could be problem solving, could be visualizing, right? Could be it's usually something that you're very drawn to. So that's what you want to look for, is some kind of quality like that. And when I defined this for myself, I was like, what am I doing on the inside? I'm sharing. It's sharing the message and sharing the experience. It feels a lot like when I used to read out loud to my son when he was little. Okay. So what you do on the inside is what you're looking for yourself, or when you're coaching somebody else through this.
Yeah.
Why? Why is it so meaningful? We've heard what's your why a gazillion times, right? When I'm talking about why, I'm talking about the highest, loftiest values that we have. Peace, love, joy, equality, right? Wellness, expansion, right? Self-actualization, whatever it is, a very lofty, it's those concepts that pull the best out in us. It's something that we strive for. So why is it so meaningful for me to share the message and share the music? Unity. There's something about music that unifies people. You've got everybody on stage. I led a giant team of over 100 people. And then you've got the entire audience. The place that I performed sat 3,000, and it was oftentimes filled. So we are unified through the music. And that's why sharing the message and sharing the experience was so meaningful for me. So that's an example of flow strategy. So what you're doing on the inside is your most compelling internal self-motivator. That's that thing that makes you tick. That's your secret sauce. And when you can define that, right, you can replicate it. And why it's so meaningful is it's like an external self-motivator, because you're reaching for those highest values. And why it's so meaningful means you can now shift into the flow state with purpose. And this is what I call flow strategy.
Okay. So you talked about...
This would be a good time to see if there's any questions. Or
I know one came up, and Artrell said, is it possible, likely, to reach flow during something you don't enjoy?
Yes, I'm so glad that was asked, because now we're talking about the difference between my mom and my dad, right? Because she just was doing something she loved and she was getting into flow. My dad, maybe he liked sales, maybe he didn't. I think he just really liked connecting and being of service. So something that was already intrinsic in him, he was able to bring to his job. I'll give you another example. I, as a violinist, I had a transition away from performing in orchestras into doing keynote speaking. And during that time, I had to go networking, which is something I never had to do as a violinist, ever. I do not have your experience, David, growing up on the golf course, where that idea of social interactions and connections, you know, was like something that was ingrained in your upbringing, right?
Yeah, right.
So I never had that. I'm like, you know, late in life going into networking. And I was at this event, and it was like people were standing in circles. I was like, is this like middle school all over again? Like, how do you break into these conversations? I don't know anybody. It was so weird. And I was so exacerbated about it. I literally like ran to the bathroom stall to collect myself. I was like, how am I going to crack this nut, right? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to awkwardly hover around a circle of people, and I'm going to eavesdrop. And if I have a story based on what they're talking about, it's going to feel like to me that I'm going to have to be assertive to just kind of tell the story because nobody knows me and I'm just going to kind of have to say it. And that's what it feel like to me. But here's what actually happened. As soon as that happened and I dropped a story, you know what happens when one person drops a story? Somebody else has a story, right? Now we're all telling stories instead of doing networking. We're like, hi, my name is this and I do that, right? So it was actually activating a conversation. But then I realized, you know what? I was sharing a message and I was sharing a story. It's the exact same feeling as when I'm performing music. I'm sharing the message, I'm sharing the story. And when you're sharing that, you're connecting with other people, and that's unifying. Turns out I could use my flow strategy to get outside of my comfort zone. And I am not kidding you. I am not making this up. I ran out of business cards that night.
Good for you.
So there's a long answer to a short question. I believe that once you know your unique way of getting into flow, you can take it into different arenas in your life.
Yeah.
When you're outside of your comfort zone and you want to rock. Here's another thing. I can't believe it. I lost it again. Oh, well, it'll come back.
It will.
Yeah.
It will.
Happens to all of us.
Yeah. So thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. If anyone else watching live on LinkedIn and YouTube has questions, I've got a few for you. So
yes.
I will just keep plugging along in case someone else brings one up. I will check out the chat. So how can you talk about, going to HR conferences and talking to HR professionals? Yeah. How can they use the flow principles to improve onboarding and training and professional development?
Yes. Onboarding. You can let's go back to the 3 prompts for figuring out a flow strategy. When you are coaching somebody else to get into flow, they do not have the background that you have. I've already given you education on the neuroscience of flow. How do you know you're in flow, right? I've already kind of outlined that as positive psychology, right? If you say to somebody, let's say you're in an interview process and you're saying, hey, where are you when you get into the flow state the most? They're going to look at you funny. So in this case, you're going to use the key indicators. Where are you when you lose sense of time and you just love what you're doing? Where are you when you feel like you feel your best and you're performing your best, right? Where are you, right? And you can tell them it doesn't have to be in the workplace. Maybe you're playing with your kids, right? Maybe you're playing pickleball. It doesn't matter, right? Maybe you're just solving a problem for a friend, right? It doesn't matter. And then, just talk people through it. What are you doing? What are you doing on the inside? And why is that so meaningful for you? Because you're going to find out if you have the luxury of time in an interview to actually go through a coaching like this, right? It's because they're basically coaching prompts.
Right.
You will find what really makes that person tick.
Right.
And if you can help them match that with a job that you're offering, then you're going to retain, right?
Yeah.
So that was, you said there were 3 things that you said. That was the first one. What was the second one?
Onboarding, training, professional development for
training.
HR.
Right. Yeah. So for example, I have a training event coming up in a week and a half, and it's a company that is grooming I think they're all in their 20s. There's going to be 7 people that this company is specifically grooming these people to be leaders. They are pouring everything they can into them. And so I feel very connected with people in their 20s because a lot of people who are now in their 20s and 30s are people that I have taught violin to, and my son is in that age grade. So I feel like I really connect with that kind of group of people, and I could speak to them So we're going to be going through like helping them figure out what is their unique flow strategy. And there's another technique I'm going to show you in a minute here to activate flow that that has solved a lot of problems for people in the HR world. So we'll get to that in a second. And then so we had onboarding, training, and
Professional development.
Professional development. Do I need to connect the dots? How can you show up more authentically, more grounded? How can you develop your leadership? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because it's contagious. Flow is contagious. So when you are coming from what's so meaningful for you on the inside and why it's so meaningful, right? You're coming from a place of purpose and you are activating the 40,000 neurons in your heart. When you're thinking of purpose, you are not feeling it in your head, okay? So when you're thinking of purpose, it activates the 40,000 neurons in your heart. Now, very different from most people. As a musician, a symphony would be 45 minutes up to 90 minutes, right? Which means that we are steadily engaged for a very prolonged period of time in a sense of meaning and purpose. We are exuding that. We are feeling that in our heart. And according to the Heart Math Institute, your heart, when it's activated in this way, the energy reaches out 3 feet all around you. Let's go back to my orchestra picture. Let's find it. So I'm kind of in that spotlight there. Imagine a 3-foot circle radiating 3 feet around me. Like I am getting into the music, like with all of my, passion and soul, right? And that's radiating to a point where everybody in that circle senses it. They sync up because we're humans. We sync up. It's basically like the energy of enthusiasm, but according to the Heart Math Institute, it's a physical thing. We sync up. Now, those people are going to be radiating their 3-foot circles all around them. And the ripple effect continues. And now the audience is looped in. And this is how I don't know if you thought about this, David. I'm leading without speaking a word. And this is how.
Yeah.
Getting into flow was me putting on my oxygen mask first so I can be at my best under high pressure, turn off that fight or flight response, turn off that inner critic, right? Be at my best, exceed. I very frequently, I would perform better on stage than I would in the practice room. And that's that other model that we still have to get to talking about, because that's about getting outside of your comfort zone. And I would exceed what I thought I was capable of. And it was so fulfilling. I mean, this is like, this does not have to be reserved for musicians. Everybody is capable for this. So personal development is how can you sustain your sense of purpose throughout your day? Because it is going to like really amplify and magnify so many things for you in your workplace and for yourself. Come home at the end of the day less drained. Influence people.
Yeah.
That's all.
Definitely. No, I love that. I didn't really think about that much until you brought it up. So I'm going to look at that picture behind you and just people in an orchestra and an audience a little different, because I didn't really think about it that way, but it's so true.
Yeah.
As you've experienced it and been able to do it under high pressure and have peak performance and just like you said, you perform better than you do at practices, and it's it makes a lot of sense. So
I have a cousin who struggles in life, and whenever we have a big family gathering, I have to see this person who it's sad, and unfortunately this person will just kind of start talking about all of their woes and they won't stop. And I know this pattern, and I don't want to be I don't want to be somebody's sounding board to just, hear this endless stream of, I don't feel like it serves my cousin, and it just brings me down, right? And I literally, because of my experience performing music, I remember I knew I was going to see this person. I wanted to make the most out of it. And I decided to just look at her and smile, and to feel the joy, feel the kind of joy that I feel right in this environment. And I held on to it really strongly. I held on to the vibe of it. I held on to the facial expression of it. It took her about 10 minutes, but you know what happened? She started smiling. And then she wound up her conversation. Like, she realized she didn't have to continue talking about it. Like, we just ended up like kind of smiling and chit-chatting about light stuff,
Yeah.
And so sometimes, everybody's under so much stress, and if you could lead non-verbally, this is an example of, how I experienced it directly on purpose, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point, because like your cousin, I'm sure people every day in their workplace, if they're in an office setting, right? Like if they're at home, they don't really have to interact like you would in an office setting where you're talking to people. So it's similar to what you've experienced with your cousin, when people are around you at work and they just bring down morale, right? And they just bring down the team, and everyone's in a different mood because one person might just be so down and so negative, and it just spreads, right? So
This is how you flip the switch.
yeah.
David, I know you've got a list of questions, but we have to do this, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So I talked about Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and this is one of his book on flow. He talks about many, many, many different ways to activate flow. When I speak, I have spoken at so many HR conferences that this has been a huge problem solver for them. Okay. So in case you can't see this clearly, it's a Venn diagram with 3 circles. It's got skill, challenge, and purpose. And so this is the universal entry point into flow. We talked about my thought leadership, which is flow strategy. And that's how people uniquely get into flow. This is how everyone gets into flow. Okay. So a skill, if you think about just skill and purpose, skill and challenge for a second, a skill without a challenge is not going to ignite anything. A challenge without a skill is not going to ignite anything. It's the 2 together that activates flow and brings out the best in all of us. So I want you to think about this. If you think about the gaming industry is all built on the interplay between skill and challenge. We've all played a game, right? You start playing a game, it's hard, you get skilled up just by doing it over and over again. And then right when you're feeling on top of it, boom, you get the next challenge, right? So when you get to that top of that, okay, oh, I got this, right? There's that dopamine hit again. Boom, next challenge. Now you're out of your comfort zone again, right? Now you're going to want to, what that dopamine hit felt like. So you're going to go through the next level of skilling up, right?
Yeah.
And so this is how the entire gaming industry was. I mean, they have this down to a science. We've all experienced it. Now, here's the deal. Once again, we're getting back to eating cheap candy, right? Because if that's all you're doing is this interplay between skill and challenge and skill and challenge and skill and challenge, at some point it's not healthy, right? We've heard about the addictiveness of this. It's purpose. That's the 3rd circle on here. That's what grounds everything.
Yep.
Without that, you're just going to spin and spin and spin. It's that like I talked about earlier, that do without the being part. So when you think about at the intersection of skill, challenge, and purpose, volunteer work is a perfect example. It's got a group of people coming together with a variety of skills, all doing it for a purpose. And it's challenging. And in this environment, people love the hard work, right? It's fulfilling and meaningful. There's collaboration. There's people ideating, right? They're coming up with solutions, right? So So how can you create this in your daily workplace? It's to use this skill, challenge, and purpose as a lens to look through, as maybe an assessment tool or as a planning tool. So somebody shared with me, this was at the Northwest Human Resources Management Association
It's a mouthful.
pre-conference workshop. And this woman shared that she said, I knowingly hired somebody who is overskilled for the job. I've been very nervous about retaining her. And she said, I have been so on eggs and, walking on eggs, like not even knowing how to broach the topic with her. But she says, now I know. I just have to ask her, what are there skills you'd like to be learning that we could support you with? What kind of challenges do you like? And are you finding enough purpose in your work?
Exactly.
At that same event, somebody else shared, learning a new skill is a challenge and purpose will keep you motivated. But once that skill is honed, you've got to re-challenge it and repurpose it if you're going to keep somebody engaged with their work.
Yep.
Alaska. I was at the SHRM conference last October. After I talked about skill, challenge, and purpose, this gentleman came up and he introduced himself. He said, I process all of the workplace injury reports in the fishing industry in all of Alaska. This is a huge industry.
Yeah.
He said, there are two jobs I want to describe to you. One, where people have to put their whole body into pulling this machine down and processing the fish. And next to this, there's a window, a glass window, where you can see the results of your work, the fish stacking up. He says these people have to put their entire body into this. It's incredibly physical. The other job, conveyor belt, fish coming in off the boats, people washing the fish. All right, David, which of these two jobs has the highest workplace injuries?
I would say the one that you first described, where they were using all of their strength to do their job. Right?
And of course, it's not.
Yeah, I figured.
So what's the issue with the fish on the conveyor belt? There's no skill, there is no challenge, and there's zero purpose. Nothing. And he sat there and he's like, oh my gosh, this is the solution. I've got to gamify this. I know we talked about, the game industry is, being like cheap candy, but he also knows that, you've got to create purpose as well, right?
Yep.
So the thing is that the people who saw, they put their whole self into the work, right, with that machinery, and then they saw the results of their work, right? That feedback mechanism really helps you to see the results of what you're doing. If you're just watching fish and you don't even see the results, right? So anyways, the ROI with a little bit of flow education is huge. And the thing about flow education is that everybody's wired for this. Everybody. Most people, when they get into flow, they're like, oh yeah, that's kind of that daydreamy pipe dream thing. Oh yeah, that's just unrealistic. Oh, those ideas and insights that I had, nah, just shut them down, right? Nah, why should I think of that? This happens to people all the time, but when you give them some flow education, they realize how to harness it and how to tap into it and how to really activate and engage and find purpose in their work.
Yeah. That's a great story. I loved hearing about that. That was incredible. So if an HR leader wants to begin interacting flow into their organization, or really any business owner or manager, what's one action that they can take right now that creates that biggest return?
Yeah, well, so we have these tools. Like I said, I've got a worksheet for everybody and a handout that has all of this information on it. So you can use this skill, challenge, purpose model right now as an assessment.
Yeah.
Right. If you need to sit down with somebody, or maybe it's a team, right? I worked with a team once who, they were totally skilled. The purpose was completely clear, but but when we talked about it through this lens, we discovered that each person in the team had a different concept of what the challenge they were currently facing was.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's just as simple as like using it as an assessment tool. Then, and then, you know, helping people figure out their own unique flow strategy, right? Being in your flow strategy, right? Because we talked about that energetic, energy of enthusiasm and how it influences other people in such an amazing way. So those are some quick things you could do right now.
Yeah. We did talk about our brand statements, you and I, before we got on.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring those up because I think this is such an important piece for everybody that's really going through and learning from you, Diane. So I created mine a few months ago. My personal brand statement is really, it's really encompassing everything that I'm involved in right now in my day-to-day work, in running a business with my wife. It's to create positive, meaningful experiences that inspire, uplift, and make a lasting impact on individuals. So I'm wearing a lot of hats in my job at Payroll Partners, and so creating that meaningful experience for our staff, for our employees, it's so important. So I will take a lot of what you taught us today because it really does help. And I want to teach other people that really can learn from this. So your personal brand statement that you gave was, you inspire and motivate people to activate their flow state, go beyond what they thought possible, and love what they do. I love that.
And it's really, like I said, it's grounded in, you know, love what they do. I grew up in that atmosphere with my parents, right? And I you know, to be able to connect that dot and to go beyond what you thought capable of came from a question that was asked of me as like kind of a journal prompt. And it was like, what do other people, what's the most common thing other people say about you? And it was, Diane gets me to do things that I never would have done before. And so to go beyond, and I think that's like integral with activating flow, like to get out of your comfort zone and be able to thrive and flourish.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't heard of this book, Flow, I strongly suggest people to go out. Amazon, you can find it, correct? You can go, where else can you get it, Diane?
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble, Amazon. So it's Flow, Unlock Your Genius, Love What You Do. I think it's an incredible book for people that don't love to read. It's not very long. So it's a really easy read. And it's one that I think you'll read and want to pass down to other people that you work with or family members. And it really is, I think, one of my favorite books this year that I've gone through. So well done on this. And I really hope other people take advantage of your work there. So I did want to bring this up for people that are watching live. This is a QR code to a site for Diane. And if you want to tell a little bit about what they'll get when they scan on this, Diane, and obviously we'll let people know where they can reach out to you if they're listening after the fact. But where does this go to?
So this is just to a really quick little survey, and then you'll get access to a web page that has all of the notes that we talked about, plus the videos. There's a lot more information that we didn't get to today that's covered there. And it's an abbreviated version of the book. The book is the one that incorporates all of the stories and application, stories of things in action. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation. I love the stories you shared. I think what you're doing is fascinating and very important and fulfilling, it seems, for you. So well done on everything you've been doing, and best of luck. Is there anything coming up in the next few months? You said you were going to be doing some other speaking engagements, but where will you be, or any events you want to talk about and promote?
Oh, not at this time, but I have some exciting things coming up. Okay. And I've been very involved in a music production project and a video production project that is taking up most of my summer. And then I have a lot of conversations in the hopper about events to come. So a little too soon to say.
There you go. Well, good. Well, if you're on LinkedIn and watching, make sure to connect with Diane on LinkedIn. Or if you, by August 1st, if you email Diane, what's the email to connect with you to get their free book?
So the first 5 people who would like a free book that I will mail to you, and we're going to include a door hanger that says "Do
Yep.
not disturb. I'm in my flow."
Yep, I got that.
A lot of people have found a lot of joy in putting that on their office door so that they can focus and create a safe boundary for themselves to stay in flow. So the first 5 people, you can email me or send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and I'll give you the email address. It's dianeallen.com, DIANEALLEN. And by August 1st, on or before August 1st of 2025, and I will be happy to mail you a book. I'll even sign it.
There you go. So go get your free book, contact Diane, and she will send it to you. And I did get my signed copy here, so take advantage of that if you are looking for a new book, and definitely recommend it. So Diane, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad we had you on today. I learned a lot and cannot wait to hopefully connect in the near future. But thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. So I wish you all the best. Have a great summer. And for those who are looking out for new episodes, we've got another one next Monday. So be on the lookout. It is posted on LinkedIn as an event. So episode 39 is next Monday. So Diane, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.